Hi, Aimee. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I am a social worker for Sharsheret, and we are a nonprofit that helps people facing breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and the genetic predispositions towards those cancers. So you don't need a cancer diagnosis to call us. If you have questions or looking for support, then we're here for everybody facing those issues.
So today we're going to be addressing emotional gaps in treatment before and after diagnosis. Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So interesting. And as I was thinking about today, I was surfing Instagram, as we all do. And I saw on one of the many mommy posts that I follow, somebody shared that there was a recent study that was done that showed that 90% of the mothers polled felt lonely. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting that, mothers are already feeling lonely. And I know from my work as a social worker for people going through cancer, that cancer makes you feel really lonely too. And so to compound, those two together and add in a pandemic for fun, also, which is so isolating. I do think that the biggest gap in care is just that feeling of loneliness, that feeling of I'm all alone in this, because even if you have loved ones, they're not going through the same thing you're going through. Even if you have a partner, they're going through something different, right? They're worried about you, they're worried about the family and the children, and but it's different the way that they worry. And, so I think the social isolation that comes with a cancer diagnosis and motherhood and a pandemic, all of that really compounds. And I think the stress, we know that stress contributes to more negative health outcomes, right? Longer healing processes, things like that. But we also know that even just the act of seeking social support is proven to lessen all of those effects and is proven to increase not only the mental health outcomes, but the health outcomes as well. So, that's part of why Sharsheret exists, is because we want to connect people in that feeling of support, that feeling of community when they're going through such a hard time, because talking with someone else who has been through something similar, or even just to the social worker who is here, to listen and to share, is so important. But even the sense of community can be a double-edged sword. And it's so wonderful when you tell people and you can get support from them. But then you also open yourself up to, oh, how are you doing? When you're not wanting to think about it. And, all of that can be both really helpful and sometimes hurtful as well.
So what advice do you have for getting the proper support, or the support that lessens the feeling of loneliness versus increasing the feeling of loneliness? Because what I'm hearing from you is, if you say, okay, I'm needing support, but then people are asking, well, how are you doing at times, or in a way that you don't find supportive, it could create that double-edged sword that you're speaking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hate to sound like a company man, but I will say that the number one advice I would give anyone is to call Sharsheret.
Okay.
Because we really meet each person where they're at, and we listen, and, we don't just slot you into our programs. We listen to people and we figure out, if there's something that they're looking for that Sharsheret offers, great. If there's something that I know another organization offers, I'm going to send you, to the right place. And it's usually a combo of all of the above. And we do have, lots of support to offer, both with our team of social workers, also our peer support network, where we can match people. If somebody says my 8-year-old is really having a hard time with my diagnosis, well, I can try to find them somebody with a similar diagnosis who had a child around the same age, or if somebody is, saying, I just had a baby and I'm about to have a mastectomy and I don't know what can I do to prepare because I'm not gonna be able to pick my baby up, after surgery. I can match them with somebody who had a child around that age, and also had the same surgery. So, peer support is so powerful in that respect. And, there are other Sharsheret programs too that can help. We have our Busy Box, which is a box of toys that's really personalized for each child in the house, based on not only their age, but also their interests. I ask, what are they into? Are they into Legos? Are they into, superheroes, whatever?
Mhm.
And we send them a box of toys to keep them busy. And then it also comes with a storybook that explains cancer at a child's level. And then parenting resources for the parents as well. We also have our virtual Busy Box, which is on our website and has videos that can help, entertain your children when you just need to rest or, have something new, and fun.
Mhm.
But beyond that, I think there are other ways to repair. And this is something that, we Sharsheret social workers often help talk people through. But it's also stuff that you can do on your own. Maybe it's arranging play dates for your child. Maybe it's, just making sure that you have like a care calendar. There are websites where you can set up a care calendar. And if you do have, a support system that wants to help, you can give them actionable items instead of, so many people say, oh, if there's anything I can do, let me know.
Mhm.
And we as moms already have a really hard time asking for help, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I talk about with almost every mom who calls Sharsheret, and honestly, even people who aren't moms, who call
Mhm.
Sharsheret have a really hard time asking for help. I think everybody does. And so, I also do talks like this for community members on
Mhm.
how to be a caring community, how to
Mhm.
show up for people. And one of the things I always say is, please never say, let me know if there's anything I can do, because
Yeah.
nobody's ever going to say, oh yeah, you know what? I need toilet paper. Can you get me
Yeah.
toilet paper? Maybe they will. And if they do, more power to them. And I often tell our Sharsheret callers, if there's a list that you can have, just have a running list, because when somebody says that, give them something to bring. Like, give them, you know what? It would be so great if you could take my kid to the park today. Like, they need to get out of the house and I don't have the energy today. That would be such a help, but sometimes they don't feel comfortable, but if you can have a running list so that you feel a little bit more comfortable giving people action items, because most of the time when people say that, they really mean well, and they really do want you to say, yes, please do X, Y, and Z for me, but they don't. Our society is not built in a way that we teach people these things. We don't teach people how to show up in hard moments. And so usually they try to say, well, it could be worse, or, oh, you know what? I know somebody who went to see this doctor. You should go see that doctor. And it's like, okay, that's not helpful. I'll never forget. I've been saying this to people for years now, that I've been working at Sharsheret. And I once, before the pandemic, got into a Lyft, and my Lyft driver said, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a social worker for people with cancer. And he said, oh, I had cancer. I ate bitter melon every day. You should tell them, eat bitter melon every day. That's what saved me. It's like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been talking about that happens to our callers all the time, right? Because once you let the cat out of the bag, everybody is an expert. Everybody wants to tell you what you should do. Everybody has an opinion. We once had a Sharsheret caller who told us that I feel like my cancer is a new accessory that everybody wants to comment on. When you get that new purse and you're like, ooh, everybody notices my purse, like that's kind of what it becomes. And so, once you let the cat out of the bag, you do open yourself up to people helping with the kids, checking on you in moments that feel good for them to check on you, but you also open yourself up to, that not being the moment that you want to talk about it, right? Because cancer is never going to leave your mind, right? But sometimes it's on the back burner and you're not thinking about it in that moment. And then you get a phone call or you get a text, or, somebody reaches out, and then all of a sudden, oh, I don't want to be thinking about this. And so what I tell people a lot is, you're allowed to ask for a cancer-free afternoon or a cancer-free moment or a cancer-free day or whatever like that. And I've been giving this advice for a long time, and people really love it because it's a way to be kind and appreciative while also advocating for yourself and explaining to people something that hopefully will help them when they help other people in need, moving forward, because it isn't something that is theirs to choose when to talk about, right? So they're doing the right thing by checking in, but you are also doing the right thing by telling them, you know what, thank you so much for asking, but right now I'm just trying to have a cancer-free afternoon and I just really don't want to think about it. But thank you so much for asking, and please feel free to ask again, it's just not the moment right now.
Yeah.
Nobody can argue with that. And if they do, they're probably not somebody you want in your support system anyways. So it's a good lesson, even for those types of people who might not understand, because it's your cancer, right? You have the power, you call the shots. You get to choose who's part of your community and who's not, who's part of your inner circle and who's not. So definitely. I think that really helps.
So what advice do you have for family members who are wanting to be there and are wanting to be supportive, but maybe they're missing the mark?
Yeah. And maybe they just don't know how to do that. So first of all, I will say you can call Sharsheret.
Okay.
We do provide support to caregivers as well. And we use the term caregiver very loosely.
Okay.
So a caregiver might be a friend that lives across the country. A caregiver might be a parent of an adult, who's going through it, or even an adult child of a mom who's going through it. It doesn't have to be. Caregiver is usually, what comes to mind is the person who lives in the house and is the one emptying the drains and, making the meals and things like that. We use it as anybody who cares about the person is a caregiver.
Okay.
So, we have our family focus packet that is really geared towards the caregiver and helps them understand a little bit about what the person who has the diagnosis is going through, but also helps them understand how to be there for them. So it's a really great resource that, we send for free. All of our resources are free and confidential. But then, aside from that, it's kind of the flip side of what I was saying earlier, right? So instead of saying, please let me know if there's anything I can do, think about, what are you comfortable doing?
Okay.
What are you able to do, right? Because some people, are going to send a DoorDash gift card. Other people are going to actually send a meal or drop off a meal that they make, right? And if that's something that you can do financially, time-wise, energy-wise, location-wise, then that's great. But that's not, and I think like the meal train is like the typical thing that people do, right? But not everybody's a meal train person, right?
Yeah.
And some people are very specific about the diet that they can eat and things like that. So sometimes it's more complicated, which is why I do always recommend a DoorDash gift card if that's financially feasible for you, because I think that's something that's always useful, and it lets the person feel like they're in charge. But and it's often something that I do where I'll let a friend know, hey, would you prefer a DoorDash gift card, or would you prefer me to actually place an order, and you can tell me the food, or I can just make it up, and people really do have different preferences. I've been given every answer to that question. So I do think really paying attention to people's preferences when they're going through a hard time, because they don't not stay themselves once they have a cancer diagnosis, right? They're still themselves. So if they don't like certain food, they're not going to just accept it and be happy about it now that they have cancer. So I think that's a huge one. Another is, if you're at Target, if you're at the grocery store and you live nearby, or you're close enough that you could drop something off, let them know, hey, I'm going to Target today. Is there anything you need? Do you need toilet paper? Do you need paper towel? Do you need any cleaning supplies? Or maybe I could bring a little toy for your kid. Be really like clear with what you can offer. If you do have a relationship with their kid, can I take your kid to the park? Is there a day this week, where we could do a play date with my kid and your kid, and I would take your kid, and, we're all very, COVID safe and vaccinated, or whatever they need for their comfort level. And be very specific with what you can offer. Another tip that I always give, and something that, please don't, listen to this part if you're my family or friends watching this, earmuffs, but is put it in your calendar to reach out to them, because we all think we're going to remember to reach out, right? but we all live really busy lives, and it's really a lot easier said than done. So if it's, a good friend, that you don't want to overwhelm with like reaching out all the time, but you want to make sure that you're reaching out, put it on your calendar for once a week or once every 2 weeks or, once every 3 weeks, depending on your relationship, to reach out to them. Or if they tell you a date, right? The surgery is on this date or the treatment starts this date, put that in your calendar and make a reminder to set the day before or that day also, whatever makes sense, or, a couple days after to check in and say, how are you feeling about tomorrow? Wishing you well for today. And how are you feeling? Are you healing okay? Or is there anything, I'd love to drop off X, Y, or Z, but don't be shy about doing that. They won't know. And it's not a bad thing. I think people kind of think like, ooh, I should remember on my own. But you know what? We've never been so overwhelmed as a society, and you can't ever keep everything in your head all at the time. So, don't be shy about that. I think the other thing that I always tell people when they're asking about, how do I show up for somebody? How do I, be an active participant in this process and in their support system? I think one of the most important things everyone has to remember is think about your relationship with this person. Because I think sometimes people feel like, oh, I really want to be there for this person, but maybe you don't really have that relationship with them. And so, how can you be there for them in a way that is like commensurate with your relationship level? I think a little hard to figure out, what feels appropriate, given your actual relationship with them, because they might not want to pour their heart out to you if you're an acquaintance, but you still might be able to say, hey, I'm thinking about you and I just wanted you to know that. And that's a lovely thing to say. It doesn't invite anything from them. I often, when I know somebody who's going through something difficult, I'll text them and say, please don't feel the need to respond. I just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about you. And that is such a nice thing to get and doesn't put the onus on the person who's already going through enough.
Definitely. So being authentic based on your relationship.
Exactly.
And being genuinely curious on, hey, what do you need? Because even though you have been diagnosed with cancer or are in recovery, you still have your own preferences. And I always like to think about like getting flowers. Some people love to receive flowers. Other people are like, why are you giving me this plant to take care of? Or why are you giving me this plant that got ripped out of the ground? Or how come you spent this money on flowers versus donating to this cause? But asking, hey, do you like receiving flowers? And asking those questions and giving the person space to answer truthfully.
Well, and the other thing is about flowers that I think is always funny is when people bring flowers that don't have a vase. Okay, so now you're bringing it, especially if somebody has had a mastectomy, they can't reach above their elbow height at the beginning, right? So maybe they didn't think to bring a vase down to like elbow height level, and now you've given them like an activity to do. Like no. So if you do bring flowers that don't have a vase, you better say, where are your vases? I'm going to set this up for you.
And I think that is one of the many things that makes Sharsheret such a wonderful service. And the link and the phone number will be below in the description box, is by having that education or lived experiences, you're aware of those pieces, such as reaching the vase when someone doesn't have that experience or that knowledge, not knowing that, hey, this is going to be hard for them. And this can be an all-day task where they're going to have to wait until someone comes home, or they're going to have to call someone to come over to
and by then the flowers have wilted.
Exactly.
Physically and metaphorically.
So anything else you're hoping to share today, Aimee?
I think what you just said is such a great point. Yes, Sharsheret does have these, these wealth of experiences that we've learned about through our callers. And so we have, synthesized those into resources that we send out, whether it's, how to prepare for treatment, how to prepare for surgery, things like that. Questions to ask your doctor, is a huge one. But we also, the team of social workers are here not just to tell you everything that we've learned, but to help you talk through what's going on, right? So sometimes people call us before they've told their children that they have a diagnosis, and we talk through, how to tell their children. And I don't know their children, right? I always say, you know your children better than anybody. So whatever's in your gut is probably right. But here are some things that we've heard work for people, and based on the evidence, this is why it works. But the anxiety and all of that is just a natural part of this. And so we're here to help you kind of face that and deal with it in whatever way works best for you.
Very well said. So I want to thank you so much for being here today, Aimee. As I mentioned earlier, Sharsheret's information is below. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Mind and Body Pilates, a wellness approach, please do so by clicking the logo below. And again, thank you, Aimee.
Thank you.